So for like 2 decades, Metallica wasn't just a band, right? They were this self-made monster of heavy metal that basically dominated the entire world. But here's the thing, what happens when that monster, a monster fueled by grief and control and just plain fear, turns on itself? Well, that's the story we're getting into. It's a story of near-total destruction and radical reinvention.
And this quote, man, this brutally honest line from frontman James Hetfield just cuts right to the heart of the whole problem. It tells you everything you need to know. You've got this deeply personal struggle where love and control get so tangled up, so twisted together, that they were literally choking the life out of the very thing they all loved, the band.
Okay, so to really get how this monster almost ate them alive, we've got to go back, right back to the beginning, to see how it was forged in the first place.
I mean, their rise was just meteoric. They form in '81 and boom, right away they find their musical soul in bassist Cliff Burton. Fast forward to 1986, they drop Master of Puppets, and suddenly, they're not just a band, they are thrash metal. They defined the whole genre. But that same year, the absolute unthinkable happens. A bus crash on tour in Sweden, and Cliff Burton is killed. Just like that, the heart of the band was completely ripped out.
You see, Cliff's death, it just left this massive void. He wasn't just the bassist, he wasn't just a friend, he was their musical and their moral compass. And with him gone, a huge power vacuum opened up. And the entire dynamic of the band, it was changed, fundamentally, permanently.
All right, so with this new power dynamic now in place, the monster they had built, well, it started to show some pretty serious cracks in its armor.
Without Cliff's vibe, his collaborative spirit, this really rigid new system took over. James and Lars, they became the only architects. They'd write everything top to bottom and then just tell the other guys what to play. And look, it was an efficient system for sure, but man, was it creatively suffocating.
And for 14 years, Jason Newsted, the guy who replaced Cliff, he put up with this system. But by 2001, he just had enough. And when he quit, that was the first big public sign that, hey, something inside Metallica is really, really broken.
And Hetfield's own words here really get to the core of it. All Newsted wanted was a creative outlet, a side project called Echo Brain. But to James, that felt like a betrayal. His fear that the band would break apart made him, it made him choke it. Just like he said in that first quote, he stifled any kind of creative freedom that existed outside of the Metallica monster.
So Jason's out. The band decides, okay, we're going to push ahead, make a new album. That album would become Saint Anger. But here's the problem. They never dealt with any of the real issues, so they basically just walked straight into a total creative and personal firestorm. And this is where the monster really starts to eat itself.
The tension in that studio was just explosive, Creative feedback, something that's supposed to help, it wasn't constructive anymore. It became a weapon. Like Lars just dismissing one of Kirk Hammett's riffs as stock, just generic. Ouch.
And of course, the responses were just as vicious. They stopped even talking about the music. They just started attacking each other, personally. So all progress just stopped. It ground to a halt because every single conversation turned into this power struggle between James and Lars. They were completely paralyzed by their own toxicity.
And then, finally, everything just shattered. The fighting, the pressure, all that grief they'd never dealt with, it all came to a head. James Hetfield checked himself into rehab, and Metallica, for the very first time in its history, just stopped. Full stop. When Hetfield got back from rehab, his words here just crystallized the entire problem. The band, the thing he dedicated his life to, it had become this consuming beast, and the only way forward, the only way to survive, was to figure out how to tame it. Now, rebuilding, this wasn't about trying to go back to the good old days. No way. This was about creating something completely new. And let me tell you, it was a painful, awkward, and, for a rock band of their size, a totally unheard of process.
I mean, the steps they took were radical. First, they hire a performance coach, this guy Phil Towell, to basically be their band therapist, for $40,000 a month, by the way. Then they set this super strict 12 to 4 workday. That was to protect James's sobriety and their family lives. And maybe most important of all, they completely blew up the old top-down system. They forced themselves to actually communicate and make decisions together as a real team.
And just look at the difference here. It's night and day, right?
The old way, that was all built on unspoken rules and a whole lot of fear. The new way, it was about talking things out, building trust, and finally, after 15 long years, actually dealing with all the grief and anger that had been poisoning them since the day Cliff Burton died.
And you know what? The results were immediate. For the first time, like ever, guitarist Kirk Hammett felt like he could actually contribute lyrics and ideas from the very beginning. By tearing down that old power structure, they didn't just save the band, they unlocked the creative potential of everybody in it.
So, okay, after all of that, after the therapy, the fighting, and a complete teardown of how they worked, what did Metallica become? Well, they didn't just team the old beast. They actually created a whole new kind of monster.
And this right here, this is the core lesson of their survival. They figured out that their creative power didn't have to come from a place of dysfunction and negativity. They discovered you could actually make something that's aggressive and, well, messed up with positive energy between the people making it.
So in the end, their comeback wasn't about trying to recapture the past. It wasn't a nostalgia act. They couldn't go back to being the band they were in the 80s, it just wasn't possible. To survive, they had to evolve. They had to accept their own flaws and build a brand new foundation on something they'd never, ever really had before. Just honest communication.
And all of this leaves us with a pretty fascinating final question, doesn't it? Was the monster really, truly tamed? Or did this huge, powerful thing called Metallica just learn a new, healthier set of rules so it wouldn't eat itself again? Definitely something to think about.